So I had this sent to me, and I thought it was very appropriate considering everything that's going on right now. I mean, we just talked about Little Women, that film that came out a little while ago, and how, people were saying that guys need to go see it. And it's like, I'm not obligated to go watch anything. If I'm going to go to the movie theaters, it's going to be for whatever I want to see. I'm not under any contract to go watch your movie. It doesn't look like something I want to see, so I'm not going to go see it. Just like I didn't go see Terminator, Woke Fate, Charlie's Angels, or any of those other turds that I had no interest in going to watch over the past year. But for some reason now, people are throwing out labels and names. You're an istophobe or whatever because you don't want to go see these movies. And I find that really just crazy. What kind of argument is that? But that's where we're at now. That's where we're at. And I found this really funny. So this is The Pit News. It's described as an independent student news site for Pittsburgh University. And just kind of shows you where we're at as far as, universities and where they lean and the kinds of things they endorse. So here's the title of the article. Opinion. Patriarchy keeps female films from succeeding.
That is one big pile of shit.
So you already know where this is going. It's your fault that these movies failed, and the author doesn't understand why people don't want to go see it. So let's see what they have to say here. So the film industry, as we know it, is finally expanding to make room for more female stories. Several of these stories for women and about women were released this year. Some of these films, like Captain Marvel and Frozen 2, made more than $1 billion each. However, there are several films by female directors and screenwriters, especially those of color, that are either unknown or are famous for absolutely tanking in the box office. Well, here's the thing. You just listed 2 films that did $1 billion. Now, the reason that several films by female directors and screenwriters or whatever didn't do well and are famous for tanking is because, 1, they pushed an agenda and nobody wants to go see that, or 2, there's no marketing behind it. Little Women's biggest problem, now one of the things, because I roasted those articles too, one of the problems here is they don't market the movie. A lot of people were literally saying in my comments, I had no idea this existed. There's nobody promoting it. They're not marketing the movie. They're not putting any advertising revenue in it. Whose responsibility is it to spread those words? Am I supposed to go door to door and campaign for the movie Little Women? Am I supposed to go door to door and campaign for Charlie's Angels 2019? I mean, what do you want here? I mean, that's the real problem, is the studios didn't put any money behind them in advertising. A lot of people literally said, I had no idea these were even out. Those could have been potential customers to go check the movies out, but yet they had no idea they existed. So, continuing, one example of these films is Charlie's Angels 2019. Angels had a lot going for it, but still had an abysmal opening weekend, only making approximately $8 million. To put this in perspective, Cats made $6.5 million its opening weekend, and at the end of its run in theaters, it still managed to break even with a gross of $64 million and a budget of $48 million. But a quick Google search shows that it is widely regarded as a flop. That's because it is a flop. You might be taking the budget, but you're not taking into account a lot of other factors. Advertising, for example, usually the saying is you take what the budget is and you double it. I think that's what they always do. So if you spent $48 million on it, you need to at least spend $48 million in advertising. So you have to consider that they didn't really break even because, well, I would imagine, and there was a lot of advertising for that movie, actually. They actually did advertise the hell out of Cats. They had to. It's going up against Star Wars. It didn't help it. No one had any interest in watching that movie other than furries. As someone who appreciates film a great deal, I thought Charlie's Angels was so good that I saw it twice. The film was funny, full of entertaining action, and had a solid narrative. I never thought it would be winning any Oscars, but it was very much fun to watch. I thought this movie was no better or worse than all of the male-led, male-directed, male-written action movies I have sat through in my lifetime. Because of this, I was surprised to see that the movie was flopping in terms of critical reviews and finances. I didn't check out any of the reviews on the movie. I just made fun of it because, we literally had the director of the movie coming out and blaming men and getting mad. I thought that was funny and interesting, and it flopped. Well, we'll get into why it flopped in your next paragraph. I read numerous reviews trying to figure out what was lacking, and have found that each individual reviewer had a different bone to pick. Some people didn't like the script. Some people felt like the casting was wrong. Some people didn't think the action sequences or the jokes were good. There are two common points that were very discouraging. Some expressed that the movie could not do the original movie in 2000, and some expressed that they didn't appreciate all of the feminist content. The feminist content they're referring includes a woman being exhausted and an sexist male employer, numerous male villains, and other female empowerment tropes. This outright proves that patriarchy steers audiences away from female stories. Yep, that outright proves it right there. Here's what the real thing is, author of this article. The problem is when you advertise the movie on those things, it turns people off. Now, I didn't see the movie. I have no interest in watching Charlie's Angels 2019. It's more fun to make fun of it. The biggest thing here with that movie is I don't know what kind of advertising they did, with commercials, but in the interviews for the movie, if you looked them up, and I did like 2 videos on this, if you looked up what they were saying about the movie, Kristen Stewart and everyone involved in the movie was talking about how it's the woke Charlie's Angels and, it's going to get rid of male gaze and all this stuff. And it's like, I don't want to go see this. Why would I want to go watch a movie that beats me over the head and tells me that I'm a bad person? Whether or not it was overdone in the movie, I couldn't tell you, because the advertising that I saw for it based on what the people involved in the movie were saying completely turned me off to watching it. I had no interest. That was the film's biggest problem in my book. And also, it just didn't look that appealing. One thing that she's going to talk about in this paragraph, I can just sum it up real quick, is that in the original 2000 version, it had Cameron Diaz bouncing around in her underwear. And it's like, well, you wonder why that one was a hit. That obviously appealed to men because Cameron Diaz and Lucy Liu, and I forget who else was in it, but those two are very attractive women. And the film was kind of marketed to, the male gaze. We'll go ahead and say that. That's why that one did it very, very well. Now, in this paragraph right here, she talks about the Bechdel test, or the Bechdel, or however you say it. I'm not sure, but it's this test that goes over if women, if women are prominent in the film. It's pretty much a feminist test, is what it is. That's not an advertising thing that's going to get me to go watch a movie. That doesn't work. What I care about is if it's entertaining and tells a good story. And obviously, it doesn't sound like Charlie's Angels did that. Now, if you found the film interesting or entertaining, that's great. But it's not my obligation to go see it so you can get more of them made. You need to rise up. You need to rise up your fellow woke friends and people on Twitter that just want to bicker and complain all day over on 10% Twitter to go out and consume and support these properties. The problem is none of you do, and that's why everything that's marketed towards you fails. All right, so let's continue on. There are many possible reasons for these disappointing box office numbers. Booksmart was an unfortunate situation to begin with because it had to open in competition with movies that were already dominated in the box office. However, I think this movie is yet another reason that there is a lack of interest in these new female stories. Now, you're already contradicting yourself here because you're talking about how the movie came out during a time when other movies were dominated in the box office. That kind of answers your question. It got kind of overshadowed. I looked this film up. Doesn't look like I wanted to see this movie. You're right. I also never heard of it either. Didn't even know this movie existed till I read your article. So maybe advertising might fit the narrative here. I looked at the Rotten Tomatoes on it. Actually, audiences liked it. It's like 77%, which is the main thing I care about is the audience score. 77%. So it seems like people did dig the movie. Maybe it just needed some advertising. Booksmart is a story about high school girls that look and act like high school girls. They are nerdy, awkward, and emotional. We get to see them try and fall in love that isn't exploited, but just portrays what it is like for a real high school experience. This movie is funny and relatable, and it offers several kinds of representation for minorities, however small. Critics are aware of this, but audiences aren't, likely because Hollywood has spent years telling us that these aren't the kind of movies we want to see. That's actually the opposite. They spent years telling us these are the kind of movies we need to see. And when you see, this is how you could tell that these people live in a bubble, right? Like, they're all in their, like, you know, their protests at college and stuff. So saying that it has representation, that doesn't make someone go to the theater. What makes people go to the theater is how good the movie looks, okay? I can think of like a movie like Blade, right? That stars Wesley Snipes. I went to see that twice in the theater before I was even old enough to go see that movie because it was rated R. What it takes for me to go see a movie, no matter who's in it, is how good the movie looks. Okay, you can't say that it has representation. That doesn't drive somebody to the movie theater. You know, and this is the problem with all of these woke products, is because these people think that that's a selling point. That's not a selling point. A selling point is an entertaining movie that tells a good story. Maybe this movie tells a good story, this book smart movie, but I don't have any interest in the high school experience for a bunch of kids. That's not something I'm interested in. You're right. I'm not interested in that female story. I am interested in a female story that involves Wonder Woman. Hell yeah, I'll go see Wonder Woman 1984 or even Black Widow. Those movies are going to do very well. Those are the kind of female-led movies that guys want to see. But they never bring this up. Guys don't want to watch high school girls go and have like failure at high school. They don't care about this.
How dare you?
So anyway, the list just gets longer when you look at 2019. Numerous other movies that are by and for women were flash in the pan this year. And those by and for women of color fared even worse. Where'd You Go, Bernadette, Late Night, and The Kitchen. The Kitchen are just a couple examples of films that were highly anticipated that were not highly attended. Well, I guess they weren't highly anticipated then, were they, if they were barely attended? So yeah, like I said, I've never heard of any of these movies she lists. That might be the problem. But like I said, you know, it's funny. She goes in here and talks about successful films that have a guaranteed fan base, Captain Marvel and such. Yes, they have an affiliation with Marvel. They're going to draw comic book fans. And that's kind of where she goes for the rest of the article. Talks about how, you know, movies like Captain Marvel can do well, but, you know, all these other movies that she's listing don't do well. And that's because, you know, they don't appeal to everybody. I don't see the problem with not appealing to everybody. What's wrong with making a movie that just goes after one group? The problem is you need to get everybody that are in those groups that the movie's appealing to go. And, you know, a lot of the time that just doesn't happen. There's tons of films that don't do well every year. It's not a problem because a handful of films that are, you know, geared towards women don't do well. You don't run around, if you just run around blaming dudes for not being into them, it's kind of stupid and it's just wrong. I don't have an obligation to go watch these. And because I don't want to watch these or somebody else doesn't want to watch these, that doesn't make them bad people. But, you know, this is where we are. This is the new tolerant world that we live in. Where if you don't want to go see a movie like Little Women, you're some kind of piece of crap. Anyway, that's pretty much it. Let me know what you guys think about this. Leave your comments and your likes. I want to hear what you guys have to say. Remember, interaction helps out the video, so please consider leaving some comments and some likes. Also, share the video. That's very important as well. Really helps out sharing the video. Make sure you're still subscribed. Subscribe if you're new. Hit that notification bell, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.